In flight, engine or pressurization failures are potential problems. They seriously impact on flight altitudes and, therefore, become very constraining over mountainous areas. In the case of engine failure during flight, the remaining thrust is no longer sufficient to balance the drag force, and therefore the cruise speed cannot be maintained. The only solution is to descend to a lower flight altitude, where the remaining engine can provide enough thrust to balance the drag and allow level flight once more. To achieve this, the aeroplane is allowed to decelerate from the selected cruise speed to the velocity of minimum drag. Then the nose is lowered to get weight apparent thrust to balance the drag. As the aeroplane descends into the lower atmosphere, where density is greater, the remaining engine can develop more thrust, which will mean that weight apparent thrust can be slowly reduced until an altitude is reached where the remaining engine generates enough thrust to balance drag. At this altitude, the aeroplane can level off as shown. This procedure is called the drift down, and it produces a drift down profile such as the one shown on screen. In fact, the profile on screen is the gross drift-down flight path. This path must, of course, be above all relevant obstacles, but this will be discussed later. With a pressurization failure, the procedure is a little different. At high altitude, following depressurization, the air in the cabin escapes very quickly, and the cabin air becomes the same air as outside. At high altitude, the problem is there is very little oxygen to breathe. Therefore, oxygen must be carried on board and supplied to crew and passengers through the use of oxygen masks. However, the amount of oxygen carried is limited. Therefore, the aeroplane must descend as rapidly as possible to 10,000 feet, where there is sufficient oxygen, before the oxygen supply runs out. The procedure involves configuring the aeroplane for maximum rate of descent. You may recall from the descent lesson, in the General Performance Principles section, that in order to achieve a maximum rate of descent, excess power required had to be as large as possible. Therefore, drag must be high and speed must be high. As a result, the first actions of the pilot are to don the oxygen masks, initiate descent, close the throttles, apply the speed brakes, and then allow the aeroplane to accelerate to maximum operating speed, which is either VMO or MMO. This configuration is then maintained till at least 10,000 feet, where there is sufficient supply of oxygen to breathe. One of the crucial points about the drift-down procedure is the clearance of obstacles. Because the aeroplane is forced to descend, terrain, like mountains, may present a flight hazard. When assessing the terrain hazard, a safety margin must be introduced. When planning routes and planning the flight profile, it is not the gross flight profile that must be assumed, but rather the net flight profile. In other words, the flight profile must be made worse by a safety factor. This safety factor is based on assuming a gradient of descent that is worse than what the aeroplane can actually achieve. For two-engined aeroplanes, with one engine inoperative, the gross gradient of descent is increased by 1.1%. This increases to 1.4% for three-engine aeroplanes and 1.6% for four-engined aeroplanes. JAROPS 1 details the regulations for en route obstacle clearance. It states that the gradient of the net flight path must be positive at least 1,000 feet above all terrain and obstructions along the route within 5 nautical miles on either side of the intended track. This regulation is essentially saying that the aeroplane must be able to demonstrate it can level off and achieve a positive climb at 1,000 feet above all obstacles along the route. This may be very difficult to achieve if there is a very high mountain around. If the aeroplane is unable to have a positive climb 1,000 feet above all obstacles, then the aeroplane may level off at a lower altitude so long as any obstacle encountered in the descent is cleared vertically by at least 2,000 feet. In order to find out if the aeroplane is able to level off at 1,000 feet above an obstacle, then use the graph in CAP 698 on page 40 of section 4. Simply enter the graph with the level off altitude that is required, and the graph will show the mass that the aeroplane will need to be at in order to level off at that altitude. In the example, in order to level off at 18,000 feet, the aeroplane would need to have a mass of just under 48,000 kilograms. If this is not possible, then other graphs, shown on page 41 to page 44 of CAP 698, must be used. These graphs are a little more complicated, but importantly, these graphs will enable the pilot to work out if the aeroplane can clear any obstacle in the path by at least 2,000 feet. When you use the graph, be careful to adjust the weight of the aeroplane for any non-standard conditions and any anti-ice use. Notice that the heavier the aeroplane, the longer and lower the drift-down procedure is. The last of the regulations state that the aeroplane must have a positive gradient at 1,500 feet above the aerodrome where the landing is assumed to be made after engine failure. After engine failure, the lower operating altitude significantly decreases the engine's efficiency. So much so that the fuel flow on the remaining engine is almost as much as the fuel flow with both engines operating at high altitude. This fact, together with the reduced true airspeed, means that the specific range is dramatically decreased. As a result of the reduced range, it is now not possible to reach the destination airfield, and in fact, the priority now is to find an alternative airfield to land before the fuel runs out. The issue is of such importance that it was necessary to regulate it. The authorities have set a safety standard that, in the event of engine failure, the aeroplane must have the capability of reaching a suitable airfield within a certain time period. JAROPS 1 states that twin-engine aeroplanes beyond a certain size must be no further away from a suitable aerodrome than the distance flown in 60 minutes using the one-engine operative cruise speed. For aeroplanes with 3 or more engines, the time is increased to 90 minutes. Therefore, at all points on the route, a twin-engine aeroplane must be within 60 minutes of an alternate airfield. This regulation has a significant impact on flight routes, especially over the sea. In the example on screen, you can see that a direct track to North America from Europe is not possible. However, as more and more reliable and efficient airplanes are produced, an extension to the 60-minute rule has been introduced. This extension is called ETOPS, and it stands for Extended Range with Twin-Engine Aircraft Operations. It hugely increases the operational capability of twin-engine airplanes, where only 3 or 4 engine airplanes could operate. However, ETOPS must be applied for by the airlines concerned, and approval must be gained from the appropriate aviation authority. To gain ETOPS approval, a greater range of performance parameters must be known, and these accompany the application and are eventually published in the operation manual. Gaining an ETOPS approval of 120 minutes, for example, will greatly benefit flight tracks across the Atlantic Ocean, as shown. The route from Paris to New York, for example, can now be flown direct by a twin-jet aeroplane. Currently, the longest ETOPS approval is given to the Boeing 777. It holds an approval of 180 minutes, with contingencies for 207 minutes over the Pacific Ocean. In the future, ETOPS may be evolving into a newer system called LAROPS. LAROPS stands for Long Range Operational Performance Standards, which will affect all aircraft, not just those with twin-engine configuration. This completes the lesson on the en route and descent phases of flight for Class A aeroplanes. Concentrate on the climb profile and ensure you understand what happens to the profile when different speeds are selected. Also ensure you understand optimum altitude, and specifically on how to operate the aeroplane close to this altitude. Remember the limitation of the aerodynamic and maneuver ceilings, and ensure you never approach these altitudes. Be careful not to exceed the operating limits placed upon the aeroplane by either the manufacturer or the operator. If you do, you are exposing yourself, the aeroplane and its passengers to an untested and unaccountable flight regime. Lastly, know your aeroplane's capabilities by looking periodically through the performance data in the operating manual. Knowledge of the aeroplane and where to find the performance information greatly enhances the decisions in an emergency.